pride. What a dangerous, magnificent thing it is. A fortress of self-reliance, an armor polished to perfection. It stands tall, defiant, shielding a man from vulnerability, from need, from the treacherous notion of asking for help. And so we arrive at the great puzzle before us. Why avoidant men refuse to ask for help? It is not mere stubbornness, nor is it simple arrogance. No, it is something far deeper, far more insidious. A pattern formed long before adulthood, woven into the very fabric of their being. These men, stoic, untouchable, carry with them an unspoken belief. To ask for help is to be weak. To need is to be dependent. And dependency, that is the death of self-respect. But where does this come from? And more importantly, how does it manifest in their relationships, their daily lives, their very understanding of love? Today we shall dissect this phenomenon. We will strip away the layers of false independence, peer beneath the carefully constructed exterior, and uncover the raw truth of why avoidant men would rather suffer in silence than utter the words, "I need you." Imagine, if you will, a man alone in a room. His world is meticulously arranged, his routines, his rules, his independence. No one enters unless invited. No one is allowed to witness the moments of struggle, of doubt, of exhaustion. To the outside world, he is composed, self-sufficient, a lone wolf who thrives on solitude. But inside there is a man drowning in unspoken burdens. He will not ask for help, not because he does not need it. Oh no, he needs it more than he dares admit, but because to do so would mean something far worse than exhaustion, worse than failure. It would mean surrendering control. And for an avoidant man, control is not just a preference, it is survival. There is a particular fear that lurks in the heart of every avoidant man. A fear not of failure, nor of rejection, but of becoming dependent. To rely on someone is to risk disappointment. To trust is to invite betrayal. To lean on another is to acknowledge that he is, in fact, vulnerable. And vulnerability, that is the enemy. For many avoidant men, the earliest lessons of life were not in love, but in self-sufficiency. A boy who cried for comfort and was told to toughen up. A teenager who sought guidance and was met with dismissal. A young man who learned that emotions were burdens, best carried in silence. And so they hardened. They built their world upon the pillars of independence, ensuring they would never again be in a position where they needed anyone. They became their own provider, their own protector, their own caretaker. But here lies the tragedy. Even the strongest among us are not meant to carry everything alone, and yet they do. Nowhere is this avoidance more evident than in relationships. A woman, deeply in love, offers to share his burdens, to lighten the weight upon his shoulders. And how does he respond? He resists, he dismisses. He assures her he is fine, that he can handle it, that she need not concern herself with his struggles. Not because he does not appreciate her, not because he does not love her, but because to let her in, to allow her to care for him, means tearing down the walls he has spent a lifetime building, and that is terrifying. So he pushes away. He insists on doing everything himself, on keeping the ledger of care one-sided. And in doing so, he unknowingly robs her of something profound, the joy of loving him fully. But love is not merely about being cared for. It is about giving care. And here, dear listener, is the great irony. The same man who refuses to let his partner help him, who insists on his own independence, will gladly move mountains for her. He will fix what is broken. He will provide, protect, support. He will anticipate her needs before she even speaks them. But when the roles are reversed, when she seeks to do the same for him, he resists, because in his mind, she should not have to take care of him. He believes it is his duty to be strong, to shield her from his burdens, to never let her see the cracks in his armor. But in doing so, He denies her the very thing he himself treasures, the ability to show love through action. He unknowingly creates distance, a divide not born of malice, but of fear. A fear that to be cared for is to be weak, a fear that to be seen in his need is to be less of a man. It is a strange thing, the way society has painted masculinity. Once, a man was measured by his resilience, his ability to endure. But somewhere along the way, resilience became isolation, strength became suppression, and asking for help, that became a crime against manhood itself. But here is the truth. A man's strength is not in his ability to carry burdens alone. His strength is in knowing when to share them. It takes far greater courage to say, "I am struggling," than to suffer in silence. It takes more strength to trust than to withdraw. And yet, the avoidant man clings to the outdated notion that true masculinity is self-reliance to the point of exhaustion. He would rather break under the weight of his struggles than dare to place them in another's hands. Not realizing, of course, that the woman who loves him wants to carry them with him. Not to weaken him, not to pity him, but to stand beside him. Because love, true love, is not a one-sided affair. It is not merely about being strong for another. It is about allowing another to be strong for you. Now, the question you may be asking is, can he change? And the answer, my dear listener, is yes. But only if he chooses to. No woman, no relationship, no amount of love can force an avoidant man to let down his guard. That is a choice he must make for himself. He must come to understand that asking for help does not make him weak, that accepting care does not make him less of a man, that love is not something to be endured, it is something to be shared. And if he can do this, if he can take that first step, no matter how small, he may just find that the fortress he built for protection has, in fact, become a prison. And that outside its walls, beyond the fear, beyond the resistance, there is something far greater waiting for him. A love that does not demand his strength, but embraces his humanity. A love that does not seek to take from him, but to walk beside him. A love that finally he does not have to push away. And that, dear listener, that is the love that will set him free.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.